Hey folks, I'm Rupali, your host, and welcome back to Crime Hack. On the investigation trail of their childhood friend Aakash's beat up, where the attackers had stolen his bike too, Raj and Sandy were ambushed and Raj had to take a break to recuperate. While Sandy was investigating alone, he got ambushed again but managed to escape somehow. That night, the boys go for a night ride and spot a man installing security cameras in the heart of the city. The boys get suspicious, so they tail him and his accomplice to the outskirts of the city and find nothing except a bunch of TVs or PCs on a wall in the house the suspects were occupying. Next afternoon, the boys had planned a trekking trip with friends. While going to the rendezvous spot, Sandy spots Aakash's stolen bike with one suspect, Tushar, riding pillion, and Sandy starts following them. And now, Nayak Brothers and the Mystery of the Catacombish Tunnels by Rupali Rajapadhyay Roti, Part 26. So here's another proof that Tushar is linked to Aakash's ambush. Raj clicked their photograph on the digital camera he was carrying for the trek. Suddenly, Sandy applied the brakes and Raj bumped into him. "Oh, drive properly, will you?" he complained, but Sandy wasn't paying attention to his bickering. He had noticed the road coming to a dead end in the distance, and soon did Raj. This meant that the men would be stopping any time now. Acting fast, Sandy guided his bike into an open space between two buildings on his left and then parked it. Racing back to the lane, the boys stuck their heads out to see which building the duo was headed towards. But instead of stopping in front of any building, the men had gone right till the end of the lane where it met the outgrowth in the back of the Kathraj Zoo. In a flash, Tushar disembarked the bike and started running through the foliage towards the zoo, whereas the man who was driving turned the bike around and started back toward the main road. It happened so quickly that for a moment the boys simply stood rooted to the spot, baffled. Then suddenly the frenzy started. The bike rider was coming back in their direction. "Run, hide!" Raj whispered urgently. While Sandy danced around to find a suitable place, Raj dashed to their bike, turned it on its stand to a position parallel to the lane, and then pulled Sandy with him to hide behind one wheel while he hid behind the other. They barely had managed to hide when the bike rider rode past without seeing them. Even before he was out of sight, Raj instructed, "You take Tushar, I'm going after this guy." It only made sense. Sandy was good at sprinting and had a better chance at spotting Tushar than Raj. So he took off in the direction Tushar had taken and after a frantic effort spotted him running through the foliage. Presently, the fencing wall of the zoo loomed up ahead, and without thinking much, Tushar vaulted over it. "Trespassing," Sandy thought, astonished, and skidded to a stop. Moreover, Kathraj Snake Park had long been converted into a wild animal rescue center. One would never know where an injured, hungry wild cat could be kept. Then again, this could be just another trap like yesterday. "Were they driving in front of us on purpose?" Sandy asked himself, alarmed. "Am I headed straight into the crook's clutches? Again?" But after a moment's hesitation, Sandy decided to take the risk. He spotted a tree some distance to his right and climbed up. Quickly taking in the view, he saw a vast expanse of shrubbery and no sign of either wild animals or crooks, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He also spotted Tushar running in the distance, so without wasting any more time, he jumped. Sandy followed Tushar silently, keeping his eyes and ears open for the slightest of the movements. But soon the shrubbery cleared to give way to a dark lake. "Ah, the historical Kathraj Lake, Sandy remembered. Tushar was running along the perimeter of the ancient man-made water body, and Sandy wondered what he was up to. Suddenly, a twig snapped under his weight, and Tushar turned sharply at the sound. Sandy immediately flattened himself behind a tree, earnestly praying to God that he not be discovered. If he was, then either a fight or a flight was imminent. In either case, he would lose the opportunity to find what Tushar was up to. So, after a while of complete silence and stillness, with only his heart beating in his ears, he poked his head out to see. But Tushar was gone. He was nowhere in sight. Frantically, Sandy scanned the perimeter of the lake and the surrounding foliage for a trace of him, but Tushar seemed to have vanished into thin air. Where could he be? Sandy landed a fist in his open palm and then wondered, has he gone underwater? There seemed no other place Tushar could have gone. It was possible that Tushar jumped in the lake to hide from him, and yet again he could have come here with that exact purpose on mind, to go underwater and do something. But do what? Sandy thought fast. If he wanted to find out what Tushar was up to, he needed to dive in after him. But in this dirty lake? Ew, he shuddered. The lake was murky and so dark that it was almost impossible to see anything underwater. It had seen centuries of neglect. Approaching the lake, Sandy shook his head in disgust. Tushar must be out of his mind to go swimming in such dirty waters. And I must be mental to follow him there. Nevertheless, peeling off his shirt half-heartedly and stowing it away on top of a tree nearby, he took a deep breath and jumped in. Once underwater, he opened his eyes to see. Nothing. Blank. He waved his hand in front of him and could barely see his own fingers and nothing beyond. How am I ever going to spot him? Sandy thought desperately. The lake wasn't too deep, and soon he touched ground. Nothing there as well. After a while of searching in vain, he surfaced, exasperated. What the heck? He was nauseated, wiping the slimy water off his face. Oh, it stinks! Wishing he hadn't jumped into the water at all, he asked the same question over and over in his mind. What am I doing here? He stopped to ponder. Where is he? Sandy contemplated, frankly looking all around him, scanning the surroundings once again for a sign of Tushar. It was difficult to imagine how Tushar could have simply vanished or be underwater for so long. He hadn't even been carrying anything to help him breathe underwater. Sandy decided to search again. He was taking in a deep breath to go under when suddenly he noticed an aperture in the submerged wall of the bank just above the water level. It was just a little bit darker than the dark black solid wall and barely noticeable. What's that? He came closer to look and saw that the cavity had a door made of carved black stone resembling a maze. Bits of decomposed paper, rags, leaves, and twigs were stuck in its apertures, giving it an opaque look. The door had a strong and heavy iron clamp with beautiful carvings. The clamp and the hinges were rusted but seemed recently oiled. How odd! The door was half submerged in the slimy waters of the lake. Sandy went closer and heard a grating noise in the distance. It echoed as if coming out of a hollow tunnel. Inquisitively, he pulled the heavy door open and it glided smoothly on the well-oiled hinges without a sound. A dark tunnel now lay in front of him, beckoning him to explore its depths. Sandy was bursting with curiosity. but he decided to collect his shirt from the tree first. Silently letting himself in through the opening, he found himself standing in an earthen duct around 3 feet wide and 6 to 7 feet high. It was an underground tunnel with a vaulted ceiling that looked creepy and ancient, almost giving it a catacombish look. He could feel his neck prickle and he rubbed it for the feeling to go away. The water level in the duct was low and he decided to wade through it rather than swim, as it would cause less noise. The more he went in, the darker it grew, but he could feel fresh air on his face and he deduced that there must be some opening up ahead. Making as little sound as possible, he pressed cautiously forward in the underground tunnel. The water level dropped with each step, and he was now almost groping his way forward with only the waft of fresh air as a guide. What is this place? He thought to himself. Soon enough, as predicted, he came to an opening to his right while the tunnel stretched on forward. The scraping noise was coming from far ahead, but Sandy decided to explore the opening first. If Tushar was up ahead and decided to turn back, Sandy should have an escape route ready. So, turning right, he noticed that the opening turned a sharp left to make an L shape. Is this a labyrinth of tunnels? He became concerned, but soon discarded the thought because he could feel fresh breeze on his face. Here, the water level had depleted drastically and Sandy could walk easily. Groping his way about, his fingers touched a slit and he tugged at it. At first, it didn't budge. But then suddenly, with a huge rattle, a door swung inward. He was blinded with a very bright white light and his stomach lurched with fear. Scrambling frantically through the opening, he ran up a short flight of stairs and came out in the open before starting to breathe again. So friends, if you like the story so far, please subscribe, click the bell icon, support the channel and don't forget to share. You can also challenge us to watch and review your favorite movie, book, TV show and support us on Patreon so we could shout out your name in the review too. To submit your challenge, please go to the Patreon page. I publish a new episode every Monday, Wednesday and Friday with bonus content on the other days. So please keep a lookout. Until next time, keep safe. Namaste.